Hey, how should we get by today financially? My husband had invited me to a fancy Chinese restaurant, and it was while we were dining there. I heard the voice of our eldest son's wife when as I stepped out of the room to head to the restroom. They couldn't possibly afford to dine at such a place, so I was curious how they managed to get in. Just as I reached out for the door to return to the room, I was stunned by their conversation. I'm afraid this might mean you won't be able to see your son and his wife for a while. I immediately reported the conversation of our eldest son and his wife to my husband and the restaurant staff, and we decided to take action. When his wife asked for a final confirmation, both Michael and I nodded firmly. It's no trouble at all. We'd appreciate your cooperation. And so, our counterattack against our eldest son and his wife began. My name is Lisa Johnson. With my husband Michael, we are an 80-year-old couple enjoying a comfortable and leisurely retirement. Michael and I share a hobby, gateball, which we enjoy together. There are days when I spend time alone, with Michael playing chess with friends and me enjoying conversations with the barista at my favorite cafe. We were spending our days quite leisurely. We have a son. His name is David. He must be around 50 years old by now. He was happily married to his wife, Sarah, and they led a content life. Sarah was a homemaker, and they didn't have any children. Having kids would just eat up all our time together. I still want to enjoy our peaceful moments, just the two of us. David would say, wrapping his arm around Sarah. To David, Sarah seemed like his soulmate, and he was utterly smitten with her. Initially, I found their affection for each other endearing, and I could understand their desire for alone time. But the next words from Sarah made both Michael and me stiffen. We could always adopt if we really wanted to, without me having to go through the pain of childbirth. I'm not really keen on the idea of wanting kids that badly. Sarah said this with a laugh, and I was taken aback. I couldn't comprehend how David could laugh along with her. Maybe these two weren't quite right in the head. Since then, we hadn't been very close with David and his wife. It felt like getting more involved might only worsen our relationship. But perhaps the slight distance between us was a good thing, as we never faced any in-law issues. Life was smooth, with no troubles, and it seemed like time would just peacefully continue to flow. I was almost forgetting about the whole incident while lost in such carefree thoughts. The event happened when I was out shopping at the supermarket. I felt a gaze on me and turned around to see several neighbors whispering to each other while looking in my direction. Hello, everyone. Out for shopping? Curious, I approached them to start a conversation, but for some reason, they greeted me awkwardly, as if they were uncomfortable. If I had to put it into words, it felt like I was being avoided. It was so blatant that I immediately sensed they were avoiding me. Why, though? The answer was simple. Because I had coffee with them yesterday. Who would have thought that things would change so drastically from one day to the next? I wondered if I had done something wrong and stood there, lost in thought, for a while. Suddenly, a man's loud voice shouting in anger echoed from the direction of the cash registers throughout the store. So, how are you going to take responsibility for this? The loud shouting of the man made me tense up, and the gazes of those around me shifted towards the commotion. What had been a store filled with cheerful conversations up until moments ago suddenly fell into an eerie silence, an abnormal shift in atmosphere. The only sounds echoing through the store were the continuing shouts of the angry man and the apologies of a cashier. We'll replace it right away. Please wait just a moment. That's not what I want, don't you get it? I'm saying lower the price. Faced with such unreasonable demands, I turned towards the cash register, incredulous. And then, the person I saw made me doubt my own eyes for a moment. David. Incredibly, it was David who was raising his voice. As soon as I caught sight of him, I rushed over to him. Noticing me, David turned around and greeted me with a carefree smile, raising his hand in hello. Hey, Mom. Are you shopping? His demeanor had changed completely from the shouting to a friendly smile. David had always been kind to family but harsh to others, a trait that seemed to have intensified with age. No, it's more than that, he seems to have forgotten how to behave as a person. That's the impression I got. Why are you shouting so loudly? There was a bug in the cabbage I picked up here. I almost ate it without noticing. A complaint or two is only natural, right? He must have realized I approached him not just to say hello but to intervene. Upon this realization, David's response changed dramatically. He began to explain the situation to me in a hostile tone, clearly seeing me as an adversary. His attitude was so overbearing, I was taken aback that he was my own son. Bugs, so what? Just get it replaced, right? All this fuss over a piece of cabbage. Aren't you embarrassed? Why should I be the one getting scolded? It's this supermarket's fault, right? They say they'll replace it. But I'm so shocked I feel sick just looking at cabbage now. It's not just about replacing it. The more I tried to intervene, the more David escalated the situation. While I felt the painful sting of embarrassed gazes, David seemed to relish the attention, continuing to shout as if he wanted more. He was probably trying to make a scene to pressure the store into compensating him more. If this commotion continues, it could easily turn into a matter for the police. Thinking this, I handed the cabbage to a cashier and left my empty shopping basket with them, then forcibly dragged David out of the supermarket. Mom. What the heck? That's my line. What about you, making such a scene over a cabbage? You're out of your mind. Although I managed to get David outside, calming him down was nearly impossible given his agitated state. And I, too, was furious, ashamed of how my son had turned out. A full-blown argument between adults right in front of the supermarket. Naturally, it drew the attention of passers-by, as one would expect. My anger didn't subside, and the argument with David continued. What's the big deal about finding a bug in the cabbage anyway? It's a sign of freshness. Are you insane? Fine, from now on, you eat cabbage with bugs in it every day. How long do you plan on keeping up this ridiculous childish argument? Attracted by the commotion, Sarah, who must have been waiting in the car, showed up. Seeing her, David and I stopped arguing, and he ran over to his wife, grinning sheepishly. Sorry, Sarah, did I keep you waiting? This was the first time I felt disgusted by David doting on his wife. After what had just happened, my opinion of David had plummeted. I've waited so long. Did you get the money? Sarah's tone was domineering, a side of her I hadn't felt before. Well, Mom got in the way. What? Don't tell me you didn't get it. Sarah looked down on David as if he were a servant, her tone rough and aggressive. I was speechless at her behavior, so unlike the woman I thought I knew. Sorry. I'll go back and try again. Don't need it anymore. How long do you plan to make me wait? Sorry. Against the harsh Sarah, David seemed as small as a cat with its neck pinched. I was at a loss for words. As I stared at them in bewilderment, Sarah turned her gaze towards me. It's been a while, Lisa. Seems like you've caused us some trouble. Sarah's tone was cold and irritated as she addressed me. I couldn't grasp the meaning of her words and instinctively asked her to repeat them. This seemed to irritate her even further, as she turned expressionless and cast a cold, disdainful glance my way. Could you please refrain from meddling in our affairs from now on? It's quite a nuisance when we're trying to make a living. Trouble? You mean, that complaint earlier was. Just as I was about to continue, Sarah emitted an intimidating aura that silenced me mid-sentence. Feeling the fear akin to being glared at by a wild beast, I involuntarily choked on my words. I've told you, haven't I? Please, no more interference. Whatever happens afterward is not our concern. With those threatening words, Sarah left with a subdued David in tow. Left behind, I could only stand alone in the parking lot, watching David's car drive away. Could it be that complaint was deliberate? As I watched them drive off, I reflected on my last exchange with Sarah. Causing trouble, our livelihood depends on it. This could mean they are deliberately making complaints to swindle money. And then, there's Sarah's attitude and tone. What on earth? I was pondering this, but I would soon learn the answer. The day after the altercation with David and Sarah, a close neighbor came to visit our home. And they appeared quite distressed, with a change in their complexion. What's wrong? You seem so rushed. Lisa, it's terrible, your daughter-in-law, she was arguing with my husband. This neighbor was Jessica, the wife of the owner of my regular cafe. Feeling awkward about encountering the neighbors at the supermarket, I had been avoiding the place, but it seems David and Sarah showed up there. Apparently, they had caused a scene similar to the previous day, angering the cafe owner. David recorded the confrontation, and Sarah incited the owner, leading to a near-explosive situation. I hurriedly called Michael and went with Jessica to her cafe. Look, Lisa's here with her husband. Oh, Michael and Lisa. What's going on with your son and his wife? They're causing trouble at my cafe. We immediately apologized, knowing the cafe owner. We're so sorry. We'll take them home right away. It's you again, huh? David clicked his tongue, and Sarah muttered something in annoyance. Despite the rising anger, I wanted to resolve the situation more than anything. What's with that attitude? You're married into this family, aren't you? How dare you speak to your mother-in-law like that? The cafe owner, still caring for us despite the situation, moved me. But it seemed to annoy Sarah even more. I married David, not anyone else. That's all that matters to me. And serving such awful food to your customers, what were you thinking? What? You still have the nerve to say that? The cafe owner was about to confront her, but Michael calmed him down, apologizing deeply on the spot. We're truly sorry. We'll make amends for this rudeness at a later date. There are other customers here. Please, let's calm down for now. Michael apologized deeply. Seeing this, the cafe owner's anger subsided, and he asked us to just take David and Sarah home, saying that he didn't need any payment for the moment. Silently, my husband and I took them back home and led them to the living room. As soon as she sat on the sofa, Sarah sighed heavily, looking exhausted, while David seemed anxious, trying to appease her mood. Do you even realize what you've done? It was Michael who spoke up quietly. His expression was blank, yet his voice carried a tinge of anger. I had never seen Michael like this, even after all the years we've been together. It was so frightening that I, sitting right next to him, couldn't help but shiver. What do you mean? I just complained about the taste, that's all. I just didn't want to pay for such awful food. But Sarah was unfazed by his tone. Instead, she glared back defiantly, insisting she was in the right. What you're doing is a professional complainer. That store is run by a dear friend who has been very kind to us. So what? That has nothing to do with us. Facing Sarah, who seemed immune to common sense, Michael's anger only grew. I thought it wouldn't be good to give in to anger at this point. So, I decided to intervene in their conversation. Sarah, weren't you making our son do the same thing at the supermarket yesterday? Are you deliberately lodging complaints to skim money off? I voiced my suspicion. Between what happened yesterday and today, it's clear their actions are beyond common sense. They're nitpicking to get things for free. And their behavior is so extreme that no other explanation seems to fit. At this, Sarah burst into laughter. She laughed so hard she started to tear up, leaving both Michael and me dumbfounded. Lisa, you're quite sharp, aren't you? Exactly, if there's a way to eat cheaper, wouldn't anyone want to? I don't see what's so funny about that. Despite having her motives guessed, Sarah continued to laugh, showing no sign of being upset or confused. It was maddening. Her behavior left both Michael and me at a loss for words. Paying full price for food is just ridiculous when there are cheaper ways. I don't understand why everyone doesn't do it. Are you sane? Don't you realize that's practically criminal? You say criminal, but you know, most places don't want to make a big deal and tarnish their reputation. So they hardly ever call the police. They usually just give in to our demands to keep things quiet. You're insane. Your way of thinking is just not right. Even Michael, who had been silent, was taken aback by her remarks. Sarah continued, almost mocking him. Maybe I am crazy. But I've been doing things like this since I was young, so it's nothing new to me. It was then revealed that she used to be the leader of a ladies' gang. She shared her life story with us. I grew up in an orphanage and never knew my parents. By the time I realized it, I was part of a gang, and this kind of life was normal for me. So I don't see it as wrong. David, who seemed to idolize Sarah for her strong-willed nature, was eager to do anything she wanted. I like strong women like Sarah. I'll do anything she wants. David, you. Watching David speak adoringly of Sarah, I was filled with regret that my child had grown up to be this kind of adult. If you keep pestering us, I won't show any mercy, even to you, my in-laws. Consider this a final warning. With that, Sarah stood up, and David followed her out. I tried to hold them back, saying the conversation wasn't over, but my words fell on deaf ears. Michael and I could only stand there, watching their backs as they left. Attempts to contact David afterward, through phone calls or visits, were met with rejection. Our calls were blocked, and we became estranged. Following that incident, we, as a couple, started receiving cold stares from our neighbors. In a small town, rumors spread quickly, and being ignored or having our greetings unreturned became the norm. The whispers of passers-by made me paranoid, thinking they might be talking about me. We even went to apologize to the cafe we had troubled, only to be told not to come back as long as we were associated with David and Sarah. I was overwhelmed with frustration, and that night, I cried myself to sleep. Suppressing my voice, I cried, overwhelmed by the desire to just disappear because of the pain. Mentally exhausted, I ended up spending the next few days confined to bed. Fearful of even stepping outside, Michael took care of all the household chores for me. One day, Michael suggested we go out for a change of scenery. A friend who runs a Chinese restaurant said he'd love for you to come. This restaurant, run by Michael's friend, was exclusive and usually didn't welcome walk-ins. Hearing about my condition, they had insisted on inviting us over. You've been so down, wouldn't it be nice to eat something delicious and cheer up? Michael said, gently patting my back, his kindness making him all the more dear to me. Grateful for having married him, I accepted the dinner invitation. My face had grown thin from days of barely eating. I tried to hide it with makeup, but Michael saw through my forced smiles, telling me I didn't need to pretend. With a heart full of wishes I knew wouldn't come true, we headed to the restaurant. Upon arrival, we were warmly greeted by Brian and Stephanie. Welcome, I've been waiting for you. It's been a while. We're in your care today. Lisa, please make yourself comfortable. The Chinese cuisine our young chefs prepare is exceptional. Stephanie said, her gentle demeanor and Brian's solid presence providing a sense of relief. Smiling weakly, I nodded in response to their kind words. Concerned for my weakened state, Stephanie took my hand and supported me as she guided us through the restaurant. The interior, meticulously cleaned, radiated a sense of cleanliness. Welcome. We've been waiting for you. The one who greeted us with those words was the head chef, Alex. His energy was so uplifting that it almost overwhelmed my despondent spirit with its vigor. I'll put my best effort into today's dishes. Alex's cooking is truly exceptional. Please, relax and enjoy your meal. The one who offered that comforting smile was the server, Evelyn. Her gentle smile soothed my heart, and a natural smile found its way back to my face. It was while we were being treated to delicious Chinese cuisine that I almost began to forget about David and his wife's troubles. Hey, how should we get by today financially? On my way to the restroom, I happened to hear a familiar voice coming from one of the private rooms. In a store known to my parents? That might be risky. What are you scared of? It's no different from the places we usually go to. Still, I mean, since when did you become such a wimp? I get so annoyed seeing men without any backbone. I immediately recognized it was David and Sarah from the tone and words. How did they manage to get into this restaurant? It was just as I reached out to touch the door of the room, intending to listen closer. Hearing the content of the conversation, the color drained from my face. And just then, I nearly collapsed on the spot. Ma'am? Are you all right? Do you feel unwell? Alex was there to explain the dishes. Unable to explain my situation, I simply expressed my desire to return to our room. But in my weakened state, walking was a challenge. Upon hearing this, Alex hesitated before saying, I'm sorry, it might not be appropriate since you're a lady, but... Considering the emergency, he gently lifted me and carried me back to the room. Upon being hurriedly brought to the room, I found Michael, Stephanie, and Brian already gathered inside. Stephanie rushed to my side in surprise and concern as Alex and I arrived, breathless. Alex gently set me down in a chair and joined us inside, ensuring our conversation remained private. What happened to you? Are you all right? My body is fine. But you? It's serious. David and his wife. David. What happened? Seeing my pale face, Michael calmly offered me some tea to help me relax. After taking a sip of tea and calming my nerves with a deep breath, I explained the conversation I had overheard outside the room and the situation. Actually, a couple by the name of Johnson did come in today. What? I remembered that we had brought David and his wife to this restaurant when they got married. At that time, Brian had made a membership card for them, knowing they were our children. So, that's how they managed to come here for a meal. I'm sorry. It's all because I did something unnecessary. Why are you apologizing, Brian? We are the ones who should be sorry. What should we do now? It would be bad if they start causing trouble inside the restaurant. As we all worried about the situation, Alex came up with a suggestion. How about this? We were hesitant to accept his proposal. But that would be too much to ask of you, Alex. Don't worry about it. If I can help you out, this is the least I can do. Alex's hearty laugh and reassuring demeanor brought a smile to our faces, despite the situation. But doing this might mean you won't be able to see your son and his wife for a while. Stephanie looked at us sternly, making sure we were ready for the consequences. Michael and I exchanged glances and nodded slightly. It's all right. If you can help us, we would greatly appreciate it. Are you sure about this? Yes. We can't stop them on our own. Please, we're counting on you. And so, our counteraction against David and his wife began. Hey, call the manager over here. As expected, Sarah started shouting in the restaurant, causing other customers to peek out from their private rooms wondering what the commotion was about. I'm the head chef, Alex, but what seems to be the problem? Alex rushed over to ask David and his wife what had happened. There's a hair in the soup we were served. How are you going to make this right? We're paying good money here, so take responsibility. Sarah, as usual, began complaining. The surrounding customers murmured among themselves, and the staff expressed their concern. A hair, you say? Alex, however, remained composed and addressed the situation firmly. Upon inspecting the soup with the alleged hair, he noticed something odd. This hair doesn't belong to any of our staff. David and Sarah looked nervously at Alex as he calmly analyzed the situation. The surrounding customers became increasingly interested, and everyone in the restaurant turned their attention to the exchange between David, Sarah, and Alex. What do you mean by that? We don't have any staff with dyed hair, and certainly no one with hair this long. What are you saying? Sarah was flustered by Alex's keen observation. But then David began to make excuses, trying to defend their actions. Are you accusing us, the customers? Of course not. However, if this was intentionally placed by a customer, that would be a serious issue, wouldn't it? Show us proof that we did it before you start making accusations. If proof is found, then it's all right to speak up, correct? Hearing the conversation, the wife appeared, followed by Brian, making their presence known. Despite the firm stance taken by everyone, David looked around nervously, taken aback by their unwavering demeanor. What you're doing is a clear crime, you know? Wouldn't it be wise to realize your place before making a bigger scene? What? You guys, is this how you treat your customers at a high-end restaurant? You're not customers or anything of the sort. Michael retorted, not backing down from David and Sarah's persistent defiance. Upon recognizing the familiar voices, David and Sarah turned to face us, their expressions puzzled. You two again? Why are you here? That's our line. This place belongs to our dear friends. Enough with the disgraceful behavior. Disgraceful? There was a hair in the food. This is a legitimate complaint. You're barking up the wrong tree. We know you intentionally put the hair in there. I pointed to the ceiling, indicating something. On the ceiling, there was a black, round device installed. What's that supposed to be? You don't know? That's a security camera. So what? As I informed Sarah in a manner that seemed to look down on her ignorance, she displayed her anger openly. Even as she glared at me defiantly, it seemed she had yet to grasp the significance of the camera's presence. It was David who first understood the situation. "Wait, that means? Why are you suddenly looking so pale?" Looks like David realizes what a security camera means. So what? Sarah was visibly frustrated by the slow unraveling of the situation. Seeing is believing. Believing it was better to show than tell, Michael opened the door and pointed to the ceiling. There was a security camera installed there. That camera can cover 360 degrees, capturing everything around it. Even Sarah had to acknowledge the implication. Her face turned pale as she opened and closed her mouth like a fish out of water. "If you're still not convinced, we can have that hair DNA tested or whatever. We're prepared to take this to the very end." Brian added to the pressure with a wide grin, threatening them further. Then, the sound of sirens approached from outside. "What? Looks like your ride is here." "My ride?" Sarah reacted with a pale face to my words. With a cold smile, I replied. "It's time to say goodbye to you two for a while." "What do you mean?" Before the bewildered David and Sarah, the police appeared. They began questioning them, surrounded by officers. "Are you the ones who have been causing a disturbance and trying to press charges unjustly?" "Disturbance? Those people. They've been making baseless complaints to get free meals." I interrupted David's attempt at an excuse, explaining the situation to the officers. David and Sarah resisted, but the officer warned that further resistance could worsen their situation, quieting them down. "For now, let's discuss this at the police station." "Shall we go together?" "That's absurd. We haven't done anything wrong. Give it up. The police already know everything. We've told them about your false testimonies and attempts to frame this restaurant. All the despicable things you've done up until now will also be addressed. Make sure to tell them everything. That's the situation. We'll take our time to listen to everything you have to say, no matter how many hours it takes. Shall we go?" The officer's face, smiling amiably as he spoke, carried an underlying sense of intimidation. Even the usually volatile Sarah had no choice but to calm down. "Then, we'll take them with us. Thank you very much." Michael and I expressed our gratitude to the polite officers. As David and Sarah were escorted away, a round of applause erupted from within the restaurant. "That was awesome. Alex, great acting. I was worried it might be too obvious." We could only feel thankful for the warmth and camaraderie of the regular customers, who shared their thoughts with laughter. "Alex, Stephanie, Brian, thank you so much." "Not at all. If this brings you peace of mind, it's our greatest pleasure." It turned out just as Alex predicted. If it's something that type would do, you can usually guess. Laughing, Alex was someone neither Michael nor I could thank enough. Back then, Alex made a suggestion. It was to unsettle David and Sarah with a bluff. "We do have employees with dyed hair, and while that is a security camera, it doesn't cover 360 degrees. I was worried they might know too much." It was a gamble, but I'm glad it worked out. All thanks to Stephanie, Brian, and everyone's cooperation. "Thank you very much." As we expressed our gratitude, warm voices from around the restaurant told us not to worry about it. The restaurant reassured us not to worry, explaining the situation to the customers and staff, who all supported us. We had asked for help in case David and Sarah caused a scene, and everyone acted out their parts perfectly. Let's resume our enjoyable meal. Today, it's on the house. Brian's generosity brought joy to everyone, allowing us to spend a delightful time together. Subsequently, David and Sarah were sued by the restaurant and faced a significant compensation claim. The case went to court, and it was highly likely that they would receive actual prison sentences. Moreover, a video of them quarreling with the cafe owner, which they had posted on social media, came to light. They were sued for this as well, and their notoriety spread throughout the town. Naturally, it became difficult for David and Sarah to continue living in the town, and they ended up leaving as if fleeing. Michael and I pondered how we could repay the kindness of both the cafe and the upscale Chinese restaurant. We decided to use social media to highlight the positive aspects of both eateries. With the help of a friend skilled in social media, both places flourished due to our efforts. We managed to reconcile with the neighbors and can now enjoy tea there as a couple once again. We've completely cut ties with David and Sarah, and at over 80 years old, Michael and I are living happily. We have no interest in what became of David and Sarah, as our days are filled with joy. This incident has deeply reinforced the lesson that seeking easy rewards can lead to dire consequences.